Love, that ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. All right, welcome everybody. We have Michelle Harrison with us. Michelle, how you doing?
Doing great, Ross. How are you doing?
Beyond like feeling like my head's ripping apart at the seams most of the day, I'm actually in a good space right now. Just
Good.
having a very human moment today, which is
It
good.
happens.
I am human. What are you grateful for today?
I try to be grateful for my immediate surroundings all the time, every day. So I'm thankful for my family, my relationships, my house, myself. But probably at this moment, I'm grateful to have a flexible work schedule so I can do stuff like this.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, those are good things. I mean, flexibility in work is crucial.
Oh
It's
yeah.
one of the things that like I was told growing up is like to always build your whole schedule around work. And it's like the older I get, the more I realize how toxic that is. And like,
For sure.
yeah, it's like looking for a part-time job. I'm like, I can't really build my schedule around work because then all the work that I'm doing here falls by the wayside. And this is flexible, but at the same time, like I'm not going to pour myself into a mold and let other people shape,
Mm-hmm.
things for me.
Yeah, and if you don't do that for yourself, nobody else is going to do it for you. That's for sure.
Exactly. And if I go in with the intention and set the intention of this is when I'm available because I have other obligations that I'm committed to, that should
Mm-hmm.
actually make a job that's worthwhile or respect me more so than being so like, yeah, put me down whenever. Like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very needy and I'm so available and desperate.
Let me give you my soul, please.
Right. Yeah, I'm done doing that. What quotes do you feel most moved by, like 2 or 3, and can you explain what they mean to you?
So quotes, I love quotes. I'm a writer. I'm not published or anything, but I've been writing my whole life. So my biggest, my own quote, I guess, for right now in my life is you have to know where you are and where you're going so that you can measure the space in between.
Hmm.
And that's important because especially being an entrepreneur, you have to know where you want to be mostly, but you have to know realistically where you are. And visualization is good, positive thinking, that's all fine and dandy, but having real goals to achieve, and things to look forward to, will get you to where you're going. So that's a big one for my life right now, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually had one pop up today that was cool. It's a John Assaraf quote, and it's don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who come alive. Which that is super profound to me, especially because I don't have a lot of credentials per se, other than life experience. But I try to live my life by that code instead of having status, more or
Mm-hmm.
less. And I think if people had the courage and the imagination to figure out what really makes them come alive, then they will find their purpose through just being themselves and through doing that. So that one was a cool one that came up that I thought was good.
No, I like that one a lot. That's definitely one of the things that like I notice is people fall into this trap, and I've definitely fallen into it myself of these prepackaged personalities, really, where it's
Yeah.
like I'm going to be the jock, I'm going to be the stoner, I'm going to be this, that, and like whatever else there is. I'm going to fall into like this ghetto hood rat mentality, and it's just like who are you though? Like who are you outside of that? Because it's just like it's a freaking costume, and
It
they
is.
identify with like the lifestyle that they think they should have based upon that. And it's like, I definitely did that. I've shifted who I was so many times. Like when I moved out to Vegas, I always wore like a button-up shirt and a tie when I went out to get hammered. Or like I used to like dress kind of ghetto and think I was like, because I do hip hop sometimes, and it's like I thought that like that was me. Then I was like the hippie. Then I was like the mental patient.
Right.
Then it's
Yeah.
like now I'm just me, and I'm an amalgam of all those things. But singling out to like and living in one specific category minimizes me. I can remember in middle school somebody coming up to me because I had like Nikes on, and then like some kind of stonery thing or whatever, and they're like, "What are you like?" The term back then was wigger, which I hate the term wigger, but it's like just for the sake of this thing. What are you, a wigger or are you a stoner? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had to choose like
Yep.
who I am
Exactly.
based upon wearing Nikes, and it's like I'm
Yeah.
starting.
No, for sure. Well, and I relate to that too because it's like I am very much a chameleon, and I've always been a chameleon. My sister pointed something out to me a while ago that made sense to like people who are so like headstrong about these ideals and these labels, and they're like everybody has to be in this box, this is who you are. And unfortunately a lot of the times it seems like people that are quote unquote non-conformists, but they're so closed-minded about people just being different than them, or a lot of people are like that. But she made the point like how I could maybe come across like floozy or fake to some people just because like one day I can be like dressed up, with heels and business suit, and then the next day I'm wearing like ripped jeans and a bandana, just because I enjoy all of those things. I embrace all of those things. And to me it's fun just to like be like to express different parts of myself and growth too, like things that I did 10 years ago like I don't really care to do now because I've grown and I've changed. But some people are, I don't know, maybe threatened by that, but they see it as fake, or like they're confused by you. It's like I don't have to be like you for me to be me, like I'm just me. So
I
yeah.
definitely relate to that, and I definitely think that people that tend to be nonconformists, and I fall into this in lots of ways too, they definitely conform to like this other ideology of counterculture. And then that
Hmm.
counterculture is a whole nother sense of conformity, because no matter where people go, like the majority of them bulk themselves into one side or the other where it can't be any other way. And they fall in
Yeah.
this trap of like, I'm open-minded, like it's a set fixed state of open-mindedness.
Right.
And it's like the ever widening river. Like
It's true. Yep.
because I used to think I was open-minded, and now I'm like, I'm actually being closed-minded about being open-minded by thinking I'm open-minded.
Yep.
Open-minded's in action. Like,
Yep. It's true. It's tricky.
yeah, like most things that are valuable.
Yeah.
Um, can you explain who you are and what you do?
Um, so like I said, I don't have like any big credentials or whatnot. And thank you for having me on the podcast.
Well, thanks for
Um,
coming on.
because I think it's cool for people, like there shouldn't be so much weight to like if you're a published author, if you're this, if you're that, like only then does your voice matter, only then does your story have anything to do with anything. Because I struggle with that too, because there's a part of myself that, my self-doubt says that as well. But I recognize that me being a human, me having these experiences, and me putting myself out there, wherever it takes me, I don't know, but like that's where I feel like my path is. For work and whatnot, I am an entrepreneur. I own a outdoor retail shop in the little town that I live in. I'm a mother and a wife and a daughter, and like I said, I like writing, so I write a bunch of stuff. Um, but yeah, I try to be involved in my community, so that's really important to me. I feel like my strongest suits on this earth, this time around, I guess, is being the bridge between, and that is like in multiple ways. Spiritually, I feel like like a bridge between like the spiritual world and the physical world, because I relate to both, and the people that have come into my life, I'm able to like be that beacon in some way, shape, or form. And then on the other aspect, I feel like I am a bridge in the sense like for helping people. There's, I always say like there's a gap between the people that want to help people, like say nonprofits, or any like social welfare programs or anything like that. There's the people that want to help, which are generally, and not to like put people in boxes, but generally people that have, you know, have gone to school, have a bachelor's degree in whatever, they have family, they haven't really had like so much struggle, but they want to do philanthropy work or what have you. And then there's the people that like need the help or are the target of the help, who haven't had these opportunities, who um you know, for whatever reason, they weren't able to live life that way. So I've experienced both. Like earlier in my life, definitely I was that kid that needed the help. um and then now as an adult, like everything I've learned, me pulling myself out of poverty, me just turning my entire life around, breaking a lot of patterns in my family, for my family. So I feel like I'm a bridge in that sense to really like kind of pull it together so that there's true value in how to help one another, you know, by relating and understanding, instead of just like, this is what I think you need. You know, it's like, no, like this is actually what needs to be done. This is how you actually get through to like youth that are like troubled youth or whatever. So I think that that's a big part of why I'm here and what my story or life or whatever is all about.
I definitely relate to that in lots of ways. I mean, one of the things that I'd say is it's important for me to have regular people on just like myself that like don't have any credentials in doing this stuff, because it allows people to speak their opinion. And it's not that like I've had people on that have written books and have like done a lot of things within certain fields, and I won't say that I don't learn from them, but it's they become so polished in their delivery of everything that sometimes it's like I still learn stuff, don't get me wrong, but I almost learn more from people that like this isn't this is their first time talking about some of this stuff or being interviewed or questioned about stuff, because they don't have it all figured out, I guess.
Yeah,
There's
and
so
that's a
much
good
more
thing,
yeah, it's more
you know. And I
relatable that
feel,
way.
yeah, exactly. And it's like that's all like growth and us just talking about things, talking about ideals and like connecting. And you know, you don't have to be God. I mean, if you had to be the person that has like all these credentials or whatever for anyone to listen to you, that just sounds like a terrible world in my opinion, that doesn't give much room for growth, you know, as a human. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when I started this, I wanted people to be able to relate to real life experiences and have it on like a easily reachable level where it is just people peopling and, and like
I like that word.
being there. It's like an Alan Wattsism, I would say. Um, but also with the bridge thing, that's one of the things for me. Like I did an episode called "The Path of the Great Jedi," like episode 50 something ish. But I talked about how like I'm a pathway for people in the dark to kind of find their way to the light, and people
Hmm.
in the light to kind of find their way to the dark. And I don't mean like the extreme ends of darkness, but like if you're always in the light, you're missing so much of like the necessary stuff to grow, because it's like
Hmm.
that's one of the issues I have with like positivity in some ways is it's like completely negates where most of the growth happens. It's like when I'm happy, it's it's like a product of dealing with all the negative shit in a healthy way, obviously. But it's
Hmm.
like there's not really that much growth in positivity or things going well. That's a product of dealing with everything else.
For sure. And I've experienced that it could be a dangerously naive concept if you like I through my path, being on like my own spiritual path, I was raised in a really religious home, like four square Pentecostal. So I was like raised to blindly follow these ideals. And then whenever I rebelled against it or what have you, um, I realized that that was still something that was a part of me. So then whenever I got on this more like law of attraction, spiritual path, I blindly followed it, you know, and to the point to where I just thought, oh yeah, if I just like pretend and visualize that all of this stuff's going to happen for me, that like it's going to happen, you know. And what I discovered is that is like maybe true for some people, but not true for me. And I don't think it's true for people that have maybe had like a harder walk in life, or like they have cycles in their family that they need to overcome. Because I think the first thing that happens is that all these blockages come up. Like, okay, you want to be successful with money. Well, what's inside of you that is stopping that money from coming to you? And what experience do you have to bring that out in you to learn from it, you know? And it's a long, brutal process, but I don't think that it's talked about enough. And I think that it's better for people to be aware of it, you know, so that they can handle it. Because nobody ever, whenever I was going through, you know, I'd listen to Abraham Hicks and I'd read all these like Napoleon Hill books and everything. And yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, whenever you have so much growth and so many things that you have to learn from, like, you need somebody to just be real with you know, and not, oh, you're not, you know, because they teach you that in church sometimes. It's like, oh, you don't have enough faith, or, you know, there's something wrong with you. That's why things aren't working out. It's like, no, you're just learning, you're growing, like you're getting through this. And we talk a lot about, you know, the dark night of the soul. And that's, for me, like, that's what that was, you know? So I'm a huge advocate for being real about all this stuff, because it is not all Smurfs and rainbows, people, you know, like it can be messy, and the growth can be brutal. It can it can change relationships. It can, you know, pull things out by the root, and it's hard and it's tough. But talking about it is so much more helpful than just, oh, just visualize that everything's gonna be fine. No, like that's not how it usually works. So I'm with you. It's like, just be real about it. Let's talk about it, you know, let's put out our deepest fears. And that's one thing about law of attraction too, is that, you know, Abraham Hicks, like, that whole thing is really good for what it is. I appreciate it, and I take pieces of it that are helpful, but in a realistic way, I have a hard time with some of it, because it's saying like literally never ever ever think about anything bad, or else you'll attract it. You know, and
Yeah,
I
it
just don't
makes you
agree with
bad.
that.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
you bad for being human and having subconscious thoughts bubble up to the surface, and it's
Hmm.
completely counterproductive to everything in lots of ways. And that it's like there are really good elements within that stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't be interested in it. But it's also like it's like I won't even say half of what is there. It's like such a small fraction of what you actually have to do to progress spiritually. I feel like it's like 25, like I'm just throwing out arbitrary numbers, but like it's definitely not even close to half of what the actual experience is. It's nice
Right.
and it's fluffy and it sells and it motivates people, but
Yeah. It gets you going, but it doesn't like keep you there. You know, it doesn't help you get through it, you know, like, and I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for the idea of positive thinking, because that's what got me started. Oh my gosh, I could change the way I think. Oh my gosh, I could think about this a different way. I can have these things in my life. I can, you know, opening up your mind to all this prosperity and to all this happiness and whatnot. So that's a really good place to start, but that's not the finish, you know, like that's like the pre-beginning of it all.
yeah, you have to be positive about being negative. And if you look at a battery, it has a both positive and a negative charge, and
Mm.
that's where it derives its power from. Like I'm fond of the saying too. You need shit and storms for things to grow. Like,
Amen to that. No, I like that. Well, and that's why it's cool. Like I have really been getting into meditation, and that's one thing that I love about meditation is you're not there to change the way that you think, or feel bad about your thoughts or anything. It's like you're just there to observe them so that they don't have so much control over you, you
yeah,
know?
it's like not clearing your mind. It's just letting your mind clear itself. Because if you try to clear your mind and you think about clearing your mind, you're always going to have one thought.
Yep.
I meditate almost daily, and rarely do I get a time when my mind isn't like is completely clear. But like it
Mm.
is just sitting with it and being like, oh, that thought's there. And then every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, shit, I'm not thinking. And then I'm like, fuck, I just thought. Like,
Yeah. I'm thinking about thinking, damn it.
um, did you feel like you were different than others as a kid?
I knew I was different than others as a kid. So I grew up in a small town in Southwest Colorado. I still live here. I moved away for a little bit, but came home. So my parents growing up, I was very, very ashamed of who my parents were. Not that they were bad people, but like my mom, she's a sweetie pie, I love her. She unfortunately has had a lot of tragedy in her life. So she is motivated by fear.
Mm.
Um and I say this like with all love. I love my mom, but that's just what I recognize and what I see in her. So she's been like really overweight, has had health problems, has had a lot of mental illness. So that was really unsteady for me growing up. And then my dad, him and my mom, well, whenever I was like 6 months old, my dad got hit by a car. It was a hit and run, and he was like left for dead pretty much. So he ended up having a traumatic brain injury after that. That just changed him. He couldn't, I mean, he had all the classic symptoms of having something like that, but one of the biggest things that he expressed was that he couldn't like handle his anger, like his rage. So he ended up becoming abusive. So, and that was a pattern that my mom had had growing up. So she kind of, I mean, I think in a way attracted different relationships that brought that out. So whenever I was like 3 years old, my dad pretty much like came out that he was gay, and that was really crazy for everybody. I mean, I grew up with it because I was so young, but he also contracted AIDS. So it was HIV first before it was full blown AIDS. So and this was in the 80s. So this is before anybody knew anything. I mean, the things that they used to say, it was like, I had to be really careful around my dad. We were really open about safety. Like, they used to think that if you shared a toilet after somebody that had AIDS, you would get it. If you kissed somebody with AIDS, you would get it. So I grew up with this fear of not being able to trust my dad, and then not being able to count on my mom, um, and she was really upset about the whole, my dad being gay thing. So my dad wasn't like really outwardly gay in the community. He knew that it was a small town. He ended up moving to Denver whenever I was 6, but so growing up, I was like the poor kid, like poor. Like, I mean, we could eat, but we lived off of food stamps. And my mom worked until I was about 10, and then she was on disability income. So it was all like really conservative with food, with everything. She was like a hoarder practically. And not, it's in the sense of where like she comes from a time where you had to keep what you had, and you had to have like backups of what you had just in case something happened with your toaster. You need to have like 3 in the garage, which I understand that way of thinking, but it's also fear based, right? Like, you're scared of what could happen. That's why you have so much extra. So growing up in a house where my mom was mentally unstable, she wasn't medicated until I was like 11. So a bunch of weird stuff happened. And then my dad being gay, which was my literal deepest, darkest secret growing up. Like, I did not tell anybody. I was so ashamed of it. Um, and which I learned to accept it later on in my life. But I almost was taken out of the home and put into foster care, um, because my mom was having her mental issues. Luckily, I had a really close family friend that took me in. Whenever I say my sister, it's actually like my best friend. That is also like, her family is the one that took me and my brother in and stuff. So thank God for them. But growing up, I mean, I knew I was different. Nobody even knew anybody that was gay, let alone anybody that had AIDS, like nobody talked about mental illness, none of this stuff. So I knew I was different, but I was also very ashamed of it. So I lied a lot about who I was. Like, I would say that my dad was dead, which he did end up passing away whenever I was 15. So um, that yeah, like just hiding behind my lies of who I wanted to be, and also my imagination whenever I was alone at home. That's all I ever did was just like pretended I was somewhere else. Like I would play house like with myself. I would be like multiple personalities, and I'd imagine the mom and the dad and like having money or being able to do these things or whatnot. So I pretty much lived my life like in a lie to the outside world, and then in my world like just in an imagination and somewhere else. So I knew I was different. I've always been different. um and I mean, now I've learned how to embrace it, and I'm so thankful for that. But it was really hard to come around to being able to embrace that.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds like um, definitely a lot of trials and a lot of pain and stuff to overcome. But you seem like you're in a good place now. So you have so many experiences that you gain from that that you can help other people with, which
Exactly.
I really do kind of believe the saying that we're never given more than we can handle. It's just that sometimes people don't necessarily want to handle it, or they don't have the tools to. But when they
Hmm.
do have it, like that's where so much of life purpose kind of resides in, is like past all that fear and pain and hurt, and like transforming it into something where you can like, I've been there, I went through that, or like, you know, that's just my perception. I mean, I can't have a perception of what your past was like for you, because it sounds difficult as hell, and it's like I don't think I would have been equipped to deal with it. I had a hard enough time dealing with the way my life was. Um, but thankfully you were equipped to get through it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's so important, especially because I feel like so good in my life right now. I've come so far that I have to put myself out there. I have to be honest about things, like because all of this would be for nothing otherwise. And even just me, like I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud of who I am, where I am. And I do believe that like I'm a good role model. I'm somebody that like teenagers or somebody that's going through something, like I would be a good substantial person to look up to. And um I take that as an honor. So I just try to be as open and honest about things as I can, because you can't help anybody if you're not authentic. So that's really important to me, and it's taken me a lot of different places. I've been able to, I ask, God, source, whatever, to be put in situations to help people. A lot of it's with youth, a lot, and it's been good. And I'm excited to see where it can go, because I'm so thankful for all of it. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't get over anything until it's taught you everything that you're supposed to learn from that situation.
Mm,
And I believe that to be so true, especially because there was so much that I had, so much heartache, so much. I mean, I had such a hard time getting over a lot of stuff. And now I just don't feel that way. I have such a peace in my heart about things. So I know that it's like I'm good to tell that story. Like I'm good to be that beacon, that bridge, like to be able
mm.
to talk to people about things and yeah, help them out too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like until you have to clear away your past and make peace with it, so that way when things come up, you can kind of move through it, sort through it, and be current. And it's like for me, until I really went through my past with like a fine tooth comb, and then like sterilized it and bleached it, and then burnt like the shelter that I had it stored in, like I was never in the moment really.
And things still pop up. I mean, there's still stuff that pops up and triggers me, and then I have to like step back and be like, "Whoa, like what is that? Like where is that coming from? What am I being shown right now that I can learn from?" And there's a constant healing, and some things maybe you don't ever get over, because like anger, I think that you can get over that. Hurt though, like deep hurt, I don't know. I think sometimes that stuff sticks with you, especially like how, I said that I lost my dad whenever I was a teenager. I don't know that I'll ever get over that. Like should I ever have to get over that? I don't think so. Like it's a part of who I am, but recognizing what it is, instead of like deflecting it or trying to like cover it up with something else. Just be like, no, like I'm okay to feel that way. I'm okay to miss my dad. I'm okay to like have heard about it. And if it comes up in different ways, like this is my biggest struggle, is I see a lot of people with their family, especially people my age. I'm 31 years old, and I see a lot of young adults, middle-aged adults, whatever, like not spending time with their parents, not honoring, respecting their parents. And it just like really gets to me because I know what it's like to have regret. I know what it's like to lose somebody. And God forbid, one day they're going to be gone. And are you going to have regret in your heart? Because that's the worst thing that you could ever have. It's like, yeah, parents make mistakes. Hell yeah, they make mistakes. I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes. It's not about like beating your parents up about all the things that they did wrong, to make you feel better, and sometimes parents aren't even honest enough or even like they're not able to see their faults, to be able to express that they did this wrong, to be able to ask for forgiveness and make it right. A lot of parents don't have that ability within themselves, and sometimes they're caught up in their own family cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people my age, it's like get over yourself. Like they are not perfect. Nobody's freaking perfect, but they took care of you whenever you were a kid. They love you no matter what. I can guarantee you that at least anything, they love you. So it's like take the time that you have, like honor them, take care of them in whatever way you can, like be a blessing to your parents. Because I mean, it could be gone in a heartbeat, and regret is not something you want to live with for the rest of your life. So like talking about triggers, like that triggers me a lot, but then I have to realize that even though it's good for me to say that, it's a good message, I think, and I think it's like a divine message. But at the end of the day, it's not fair for me to be mad at somebody else or anger or resentful towards somebody else for the way that they act, because that's my own shit that I'm dealing with, and that's within me, so I gotta
Mm-hmm.
like have the wisdom to see the difference between the two.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, I mean, unless you directly say something to them, that anger is only going to impact you as well. And it's like,
Yeah.
that definitely is one of the things, though. Like, I was thinking of this when you were talking about it. We always talk about how our parents have these expectations we could never live up to as kids, or I'm not we like in that term, but like a lot of people talk about that. And it's
Right.
like, but what about the expectations we have for our parents, like being this perfect person that it's impossible for them to ever live up to, and they literally do the best they can because it's not like anybody's ever like, well, geez, how can I fuck up my kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how can
Yeah.
I make this really uncomfortable and horrible for them? And it's like we forget that they're people and they're not perfect, and they don't have an owner's manual for how to deal with us really either.
Exactly. And like I heard once, and I had to like think on this one for a little bit, but people do the best that they can, and we could sit there and say like, oh no, they could have done better. Oh no, they could have done this way. And it's like, no, literally, they literally did the best that they can. If they could have done better, they would have done better.
Yeah, why the
They
hell
did.
wouldn't they?
Yeah. So it's like, no, that was the best they could do, literally, So it's like that's always something to consider, even if you would like for it to be different. No, like that literally is the best that they could do.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes absolute sense. That's one of the things that like has really been helping me on my journey, is because I'll like have such high expectations for people. I think one of my biggest flaws is that like I see the unlimited raw potential in people, but I don't
Hmm.
see all the internal blockages that they have preventing them from reaching that potential. It was incredibly damaging for me in like romantic relationships, especially. But being like, I would fall in love with who they could be instead of loving who they were, because then it's like they're fine how they were, but they could be this.
Yeah.
It's like that's so fucked up, really.
Well, and that's not love either. Like love is I love you exactly for who you are right here, right now. You don't have to be any different. You don't have to be better. This is who you are. And we forget that a lot too. That's the idea of love, but unconditional love, which is a hard thing to find in this world, I've realized, and I struggle with it too. But that's what love is like I love you for who you are right here, right now, today. You know,
Hmm.
and whenever you love somebody like that, you encourage them, you are the safe place for them to grow, to be better, to be that person. It's like it does it, we try to make it work in the opposite way, to where it's like if I could just get them to see how awesome they are. It's like, no, like love them for who they are, and then they will grow into what you see in them. And I
Hmm.
had to learn that like in my own relationships for sure, is that I wanted them to be better. I wanted them to be different, or I saw how good they could be, or they were good and they changed. And, you know, like that happens too, but just got to love people, try to love people for exactly who they are. And yeah, if you can't handle who they are today, then it's like, find something else, you know?
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where sometimes I think you have to have the wrong concept of love, and our culture in general teaches the wrong concept of the way to love people. But I feel like you have to understand how not to love somebody in a healthy way before you
Yeah,
can actually understand how to love somebody in a healthy way.
it's so true. And it's so brutal too, because those learning experiences, especially with love and relationships, can create so much like damage and so many like walls that you build up and so many like deep-seated issues to where whenever the right person does come around, you're all fucked up on the inside and you don't even like for me it was like being in relationships, you know, that I had like abusive relationship or they always cheated on me or something. They just like weren't like respectful and loving to me in the way that I was, because I would pour my whole heart into every relationship I've ever been in. So it's like I got all jaded by all these boys, you know, and then by the time like my husband came around, I almost like just like shit all over him because he was actually like kind and gentle enough to like be present. So he got like the shit end of all the stuff that I had been going through, you know, and yeah, that happens a lot in relationships too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that like I had to learn on my own journey is there's a big difference between like being a nice person and being a good person. 'Cause when I'm nice,
Hmm.
I'm just trying to manipulate and like get things my way. And being a good person is also having a healthy relationship with myself. And it's like in my own experience, the reasons my relationships didn't work were largely because of me, and also like not being present with who the person was and falling in love with the illusion of who they were or who they presented themselves as, and like not loving myself enough to separate from it. It's like I was the problem in all my relationships because of the way my perception was. And not to say that the other people were like perfect, or I dated people that were like me. It's really what it boils down
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Some way, shape, or form. Even when I was like the needy puppy, I like dated people that were needy puppies, and I get upset with them for being that way or
Right.
controlling, and I would be let myself be controlled to a point, and then get mad at them for being controlling when they were that way all along. It's like,
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's the thing, man. That's the thing about relationships. I mean, any relationship, there's so much to like learn from it. It's crazy. You know, like, um, I think that certain people come into our lives to teach us things, especially family. Family, really tough one. At least in my experience, you know, it's like there's this idea of um like any negative person or anything negative, you know, it's like, oh, you need to just cut them off, or you know, I just write people off whenever they're, you know, not toxic, you know, or whatever. And I hear that all the time, and I just think in my head, I'm like, what a freaking like easy way out is that, you know? Like
there's no
i
growth
believe
there.
I believe that people are placed in my life. I believe that they're here to teach me something, you know. So it's like even in the most hardest of times, like how can we work through this, how can we get better and come out on the other side of it, you know. And yeah, we just live in this society where it's just like write people off like, oh, they're toxic. And it's like, no, like what can you learn from this, you know? Like, and I like care, like keep on going like past that part too, you know, like to like really get into the deep issues with relationships and whatnot, which I'm grateful to have those, but they have not been fun at all, you
Hmm.
know. And then another thing you were talking about is like, you know, loving yourself, self-love. I think people expect like others to be their everything, you know. It's like, I need you to be my everything. It's like, no, it's your job to take care of you. It's your job to have love for yourself, self-love, self-nurturing. Like take care of yourself, put yourself first, because you're mad at them because they haven't put you first, but you don't put yourself first, you know.
Hmm.
So it's like they're just reflecting that back to you. Take care of yourself, learn how to love yourself. And then also, one thing with relationships that has really been profound for me is that, like, not everybody's gonna be everything for you. You know, it's like my friends, you know, we might be good at like playing games together. We might be good at going camping or having the kids play or whatever. That's all fine and dandy. But if I need somebody to have like deep conversations with, if I need somebody to like work out with, if I need somebody like to talk about business and stuff, it's like you cannot expect people in your life to be all of that and totally fulfilling for you. You know, it's like it's your job. Go and meet new people, put yourself out there. You know, like the second I started meeting new people, because I was so like bogged down with feeling like everybody in my life was doing the same old shit. They like I was growing so much and they were staying the same, and that's a really really hard thing to go through. And talking about starting on the spiritual path, I think that that's a big thing that's not talked about enough either, is that whenever you just because you're growing and you're learning all these things doesn't mean that people closest to you are on that path either. And my thing was I was really resentful, you know, because they didn't understand, so I felt like they were not being supportive. And then some of the things I was reading, they also talk about like, oh, whenever you start on this path, like with law of attraction, that uh you know, relationships will come to an end and marriages will come to end, yada 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 yada. So I've always had it in the back of my head that like, okay, I need to be aware that this amount of growth could potentially like end my marriage or end these relationships or what have you, you know. And then I've kind of like released that idea, because realizing that there's so much to learn and so much growth where I am now, with who I am with the people around me. Like, they don't have to be that for me. They don't have to be on the same path as I am, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like, I have to love, if I love them, then I'm going to love them for who they are. I'm not going to try to pull them up, because inevitably they will pull you down. So it's like, don't even bother. Don't even go there. You just be you. You work on you. You worry about, you know, focus on being a blessing to them, loving them, appreciating them, show them love, because this whole thing's about love. You know, it's like, be that love, not just talk about it, not just try to fix people, because I psychoanalyze and I try to fix people and I tell them I'm like intuitive too, you know? So it's like I try to tell them what their problems are. It's like, no, like cut that crap and just go directly into what you know that you can do to be a blessing energetically, physically to them, you know, and be that. And then put yourself out there, find new friends, you know? Like for me, it was like, I love, you know, I love to go do CrossFit. I love to work out. I love the business. I love, you know, writing and all these other things. Well, the people closest in my life, like, aren't like that, you know. And we're talking about being open-minded too. It's like, okay, well, I have to be open-minded to the fact that they're not me, they're not like me, and that's okay. You know, like, I gotta love them for who they are. I gotta wake up in the morning and think about what I do love about them instead of what they're not and how they're not showing up for me, because it's my job to show up for me, not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not gonna fulfill every part of what I need either, and that's my job to seek out other people. And my life is like so much better realizing that. My relationships are better. Like, I don't have to feel like a like unsupported. That was the biggest thing. I really felt unsupported because nobody close to me like got what I was doing or understood or cared to. And that's okay. Like, they don't have to be where you are. They don't have to be on your path for them to be there for you. You know, like, I realize, like, in my relationship, like with my marriage, like, my husband is energetically, he is such like a chill, grounded person for me. And I get caught up in all these other things, and they're like, oh, you're not this, you're not that, yada yada yada. And I've just like released those expectations and those attachments to that, and
Mm-hmm.
just like realize that, you know, he does love me and support me, but I need to see it in the way that he sees, that he's giving it to me, not the way that I feel like he needs to show it to me. You know, so realizing our different relationships, like, I've looked into a little bit of like the love languages and how different people express love, and that's really interesting too, because like his thing is service. That's how he shows love, is, you know, he'll make sure that your tires have air in them, he'll fix things, he'll take care of things like on a very physical materialistic level, I am like a positive affirmation is my love language. So I need like encouragement. I write thank you notes to people and whatnot. So they're so totally different, and you could see how that would be misconstrued, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But me looking at him and seeing him for what he is, appreciating him for what he is, it's like it puts so much pressure off of him too, and then he's comfortable and he gets to flourish and grow and be that person like we're talking about, loving somebody for who they are and then watching them grow, you know. And it's amazing. But yeah, we really, all those things, like they all intertwine, and you can't expect other people to be everything for you, because they're never going to be. You know, you are setting yourself up for some major disappointment whenever you put that on somebody. And it's not even, I don't even think it's fair to put that on anybody else, you know. It's like, that's your job, that's all inside work.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. You definitely have to get to a place where you're there, and it's okay to be on either side of it at times. I mean, you can't be all of one thing at all the time, really.
Hmm.
And if you try to, you're going to end up miserable all the time,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yep.
Because relationships are all about like give and take and that ebbing and flowing of everything, I guess.
Yep, for sure.
Um, do you have any odd experiences you're willing to discuss?
Hmm. I've had multiple odd experiences in my life. I guess the first thing that just popped into my head, um, so I had mentioned that my dad passed away whenever I was 15. Um, and I have actually had contact with him, like beyond this life, 3 times in my life. He has come to me in some way, shape, or form. Um, and so the first time I had met these people, um, they were like really mystic, you know. They one of the guy, I guess he was like a medium. And so I went to these people's house, and they had this room that had like crystals and relics from like every religion. They had like Buddha and Jesus and the Mother Mary and all kinds of stuff. So this really like charged room energetically. And they put this like headband thing on me that had like a crystal like in my third eye. And I was like doing a meditation. And at this time in my life, I was like 21. It was before I moved to Denver for a little while. And I was really like searching for my dad, whatever that might sound like, getting to know him, like figuring out, like whenever you lose a parent at that age, whenever you become an adult, you really feel like you've missed out on a lot. So I was like trying to connect with me as an adult on the other side of things for whatever message or whatever. So I had this like vision during this whole meditation. Um, oh, I'm sorry. So that was the second part. Let me back up. Let me back up a little bit. So I had a dream previous to this, probably like 2 years before that. In my dream, I woke up in my dream, and I was like in this tree house, and it was pitch black, and it wasn't tall enough for you to walk, so you had to crawl. And I hear my dad calling my name. So in my dream, I like get up, and like I said, I couldn't walk, so I had to crawl. So I was crawling in the dark, looking for my dad, and like I was trying to find him, but like I kept on getting farther and farther away, and I could never find him, right? And this was never, I was like 18, 19. So I was like, it was right before I was in an abusive relationship. It was just a really, really, really hard time in my life. So that was the first contact that I had with my dad. So the second part was me in this room doing the meditation, having this vision. So this vision I had, I was, I don't know, heaven maybe. I don't know exactly where it was. It was like in a different like realm. And I was like on my knees, and like I had my head down, and there was this like super super bright light in front of me, but it was so bright to where like if I looked at it, it blinded me, but in my peripherals, like I knew it was my dad. And but I also know whenever I say my dad, I realize that there's a very like like growing up in Christianity, I mean, we talk about like Father God, you know? So I know that even though that was my biological father, he also represents like the spiritual father too as well, you know, or God or what have you, so the source. And my dad was he was a very spiritual, religious man, but like I said, he was gay, he had all these issues, and he was totally shunned by his family and whatnot, but he had a very like pure soul, very strong in his faith regardless of what anybody else thought about him, which is a rarity. So anyways, in this vision, he tells me, because I'm on my knees, and he says, Michelle, stand up, you're done crawling. So like at that point in my life, I'm like, holy crap, like everything I've gone through, like from me losing him to all the stuff in my later teens and everything, like all the crap I've gone through, it's like that was him telling me, you know, it's like stand up, like own your truth, like stand up in your light. You are done crawling, like you are free now, you know? And so that was like so freaking profound, and I know that that was like a divine message, you know? So that was like a very odd thing that happened. I had another time, and the third time that he came and talked to me, it had to do with like my relationship with my husband. Just and I love my husband. I mean, I got to throw that out there. But we've had a lot of contrasts. I mean, we've had so much growth. We've grown up together. We've been together for 10 years. So, my last contact I had with my dad was in a dream, and in my dream I was at my wedding, and of course my dad wasn't there at my actual wedding. So my wedding, and everybody's like hustling and bustling, and my grandparents are arguing and all this, and there's my dad like quietly standing in the corner just watching me, and he looked good. I mean, he was like overweight and unhealthy and sick whenever he was on this earth. He was like healthy, looked like he was like in his 20s, you know, he just looked good, which I believe, you know, that's how that was a representation of him being well on that side.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just watching me and watching me, and this was like after me and my husband had been married for a couple years, so we'd been going through all this crap, all this, like I see it now as like all the blockages, all this baggage that I had that has come up. And so my dad's just watching me in this dream, and then finally like I walk away from all this craziness, and I walk over to him. Well, no, he walks over to me. He just walks straight through everybody and walks over to me, and he just tells me, he says, Michelle, I'm sorry. And what he meant, because I felt it, what he meant was like, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry that you had to go through all these things, but don't let that pain and that experience stop you from having like the best life that you can right here, right now, you know? So three very profound connections, you know, and my dad's been gone for 15 years, and that's three times that he's come to me and given me like these pieces of wisdom that I mean, they mean the world to me, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's that's a crazy odd story for you, but it's a good one, I guess.
Yeah, those are definitely good, and they're definitely intense, and it's like it's so interesting to hear the different things that people have experienced, like from having done this now for as long as I have. Like, not it's not really that long in the scheme of things, but like I've heard so many interesting stories, and it's like prior to having my own experience with like really odd things, it would be so hard for me to believe things like that. And now it's just like I get it. It's like I haven't had those experiences, but I definitely don't think anybody on here has like lied about what they experienced, and it's really like to have that, I guess, because it's like I don't know what anybody else experiences. I'm just so fascinated by it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I get into these really like closed-minded ideals that like everybody's like me, or like that everybody's thinking what I'm thinking, or you know, and then I have to like snap out of it. It's like, no, you wish the world revolved around you, but it's not really true. Everybody has like their own universe that revolves around them, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're gonna take kind of a break from the interview and pull some tarot cards for you that we
Cool.
shuffled beforehand. Okay. So this is your first one. Can you see it?
Yeah.
What stands out to you on that?
The red-headed lady, and the that's so weird that I don't know. That's a card that just is really cool with everything I've been talking about lately. So she's has this man in her lap that has like stones on him, and she looks like she's like healing his wounds or comforting him or trying to revive him or something. Every time I see a redheaded woman, though, I relate to it because I'm a redheaded woman.
Yeah, I definitely get like that healing vibe from it, and there's like a little parrot on her shoulder, which I think is kind
Oh,
of
nice.
And then there's like all these other stones in the background. It's like a very serene card. I definitely think you're right with like the healing vibe. Let me give you kind of like the standard definition of it. Because like I don't feel like I can get more in tune than like what you already dialed into it with it. Harmony. Each healing has love at its nucleus, attraction, feelings expressed with sincerity.
Nice.
So that's a pretty good one. Okay,
Yeah.
here's your second card.
Whoa, there's all kinds of stuff going on in that one. So I don't know, like a person going up into the sky, like that bright light, and then there's like a cow skull, and then like aliens.
Yeah, the
That is a
cow
weird
skull is
card.
like the suit. It's bones, which represents wands in Smith Waite tarot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's like a weird. It's like different worlds to me. You know what I mean? Because there's the aliens, and then there's like the person like going up into this bright light. So that's kind of what vibes with me.
Yeah, for me, like what it sticks out is kind of like that's like the lower dimension with like these weird, creepy kind of beings or
Hmm.
whatever, and it's like elevating into the light and getting out of like that lower vibrational state.
Yeah.
But like we were saying earlier, you kind of need that lower vibrational state to get to the light. Otherwise, it's kind of
For
like the
sure.
false light.
Yep.
At least in my experience, maybe other people have it different where they go straight to the light and they don't get any.
I think that some people are like that, but I think for me personally, I believe that it's because they've gone through other things in other lifetimes or whatever. So it's like they've gotten better at this whole thing. So they're able, like, I don't know that they have to suffer so much because they've learned those lessons. That's what I take on it, at least. Not that they don't feel things deeply. I'm sure they do, but there's people that are genuinely like get it quicker and easier.
Yeah, I don't like those people. I find it completely unrelatable, I guess, is like my take. It's not that
Yeah.
I just can't relate to it, I guess.
Yeah, you never know though, because there could be somebody like in a really, really, really terrible time in their life that they look at you and they're like, I don't know how the hell Ross like has his shit together. Like he must be one of those people that doesn't like have to experience anything. Like it goes both ways. There could be somebody looking at you or looking at me and thinking the same thing. You never know.
I guess that's true. But I assure anybody that I've been through a ton of stuff. And that's what made me get where I'm at. So the card is 8, Meeting with the Spirits. And it says, arcane comprehension, strange intuitions we somehow sense, but are not capable of understanding them completely. Desire for movement, both physical and mental.
That's pretty cool. That was like really cool after just talking about the whole thing with my dad and whatnot. So right
Yeah,
on.
it's weird how the cards come up sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it.
This is kind of a fun question. What superpowers do you possess, or what superpower would you want?
Ooh. I think superpower I possess. I mean, I kind of talked about that at the beginning, like being that bridge, like in between different polarities.
Mm-hmm.
I also have discovered recently how like empathic I am, which I've been working on that a lot. It's helped me tremendously realize my sensitivities and how I can help people too, but how I can help myself mostly, like first and foremost, like what do I have to do to keep like my energy in check? What things in my life like don't serve me, um So that's kind of a superpower, I guess. Like, um, my experiences, I feel like, have given me superpowers for sure, because
Hmm.
they give me the ability to be authentic and to help other people. If I could have any superpower, though, I've always been fascinated with, like, and nobody ever says this. Everybody always says, like, I want to fly or whatever. I want to, like, stop time, but, like, so, like, everything stops, but, like, I can carry on doing whatever I want to do. But I could also,
So awesome.
like touch somebody else, and, like, they could come into, like, my present with me. So I could have, like, 5 people just, like, roaming the world, like, doing whatever we want to do, and then snap my fingers and it goes, like, back to regular time. So that's what I want to do.
That's so cool that you mentioned the stop time thing. I can remember being in like second or third grade and like just sitting in class and daydreaming about having like some kind of like remote or device where I could stop time and literally like do what you just said. I don't
And
think it,
take a nap.
no, like I just wanted to go out and do stuff. Like school is so fucking boring for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know. I always want to, like, do it and, like, go into my favorite restaurants and, like, make my own food. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I just wanted to go play and like be a fucking kid instead of getting indoctrinated. Not that I thought of it
Yeah.
that way. I'm not like, oh, these people are indoctrinating me with crap and it's gonna ruin my life, like learning math. But like I was like, I don't want to do this. This is boring.
Yep. I'm gonna check out for a minute. Yep.
I think for me, largely it was due to like my parents' divorce and like being in kind of such a tumultuous environment. It's not that it wasn't loving, but it was just emotionally charged, and it was just like
Hmm.
if I could pause everything, I could just go out and be me.
That's exactly. I feel like that's exactly where, like, my attraction to that is too. It's like just being able to stop time for a second and just be. But that's why meditation has been so helpful to me too, because that's what it teaches you how to do. Is like, for all intents and purposes, like, the world is stopped for a minute while you're just breathing, while you're just, like, in your moment. So you got to, like, learn how to do that in the real world, because otherwise you'll freaking go crazy, or at least I know I will. So
I
yeah.
have gone crazy because,
Yeah.
because of that. I have bracelets to prove it. Uh, but no, it is meditation really is like that. Like there's been times where like I've meditated and I've stopped and I thought about the world moving around me and like you know how that like in some movies or TV shows will have those things where it's like the time lapse where like all the leaves are blowing and like the
Yeah.
clouds move over super quick. Like I'll have that experience, but I'm just like that still center and just like calm with all this change
Mhm.
going on around me. And it's like being a stone in a river and the river just kind of piercing around you and you just being there. It's really cool. And with the empath thing, I can definitely relate to that too, because a huge part of like being mentally healthy for me was like learning how to disconnect receiving everybody's emotional energy and like then blaming them for how I feel. Cause it's like that's like the lowest, that's like the untrained empath perspective.
Yeah.
I get so butthurt when people are like, well, I'm an empath, so this person made me feel that way, and
Mhm.
I don't need to hang around them. And it's like, I've been there and I get it, but it's like any spiritual gift, anything worth having takes cultivation, takes discipline, takes refinement. And if you want to sit there and blame other people, you're going to live a very isolated, miserable life, at least in my experience. And
Yeah.
it's like you were saying earlier, like those situations that kind of bring up conflict in you and like people that are difficult to be around. That's really where the growth is. And until people can realize that like those situations, it's not about those people, it's about the perception of those people and the perception
Mhm.
of the way that you want things to be. And like it's like that there's a saying by Heraclitus, and it's nothing's disturbing lest you be disturbed. So it's like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yep.
people don't want to deal with that though and be like, well, I'm the reason I'm disturbed. It's easier to say, well, screw that person, they disturbed me, because then
Yep.
you don't have to do anything, you can just blame them
Yeah.
and be pissed off. And
Yeah, huge lack of responsibility and accountability too. And it's hard because you can go on the extreme of even that being like, oh, it's all me, like it's all my fault, I'm this, I'm that. And some people, unfortunately, like, can take advantage of that too. Like, I learned that with, like, some of my relationships. The second that I started to be really honest and authentic about my faults and about, like, how I want to be better as a person, some people felt like that was an opportunity to, like, put all of their shit on me that didn't even belong to me. So I have to, like, and at first I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, here I am trying to be a good person, and then everybody's just like shitting all over me. Like, what's up? But then I like looked at it objectively, and it's like, you know, they're so, they just need somebody, or they recognize that somebody being open, like a lot of times it's people that aren't open and honest. So whenever they see somebody that's open and honest, they just like want to throw all their crap on them. So my thing is like, okay, like I'll take what's mine, but I am not taking all of that. Like I cannot take all of that. That will crush my soul. Like I will not do that. So like having the intuition to being able to realize, like, is that me, or are they taking something out on me that is not mine, or that somebody else did to them, you know? Like, just because I'm the one that's open to taking responsibility for things. So I mean, err on the side of caution with that stuff, like everybody, because that's a real thing too, you know? It's like, take what's yours, but leave the rest behind. Even if people want to throw it at you, it is not yours, you know?
That's definitely true. You do have to be able to be detached by it, but like it is that healthy balance of both of those things, because it's like it's never all one-sided. I feel like, really, because
Right.
even if it is them being a certain way, you don't have to put yourself in that situation. You can just be like, all right, well, this, you're not seeing your own part in this. It isn't all me. My part of the perception of you is real, but like
Mm.
I don't have to participate in this. But it goes back to people just want to throw things away so quickly, I guess. So
Yeah.
you have to like find that tension point, which is fucking uncomfortable. Again, it's one of those things where it's like to do it well, where it's healthy, for you and for the other person, which is like a fractal of you or a reflection of you, or however people want to view it. It's like you have to kind of be in that space, and then over time I think it becomes more intuitive and less like, is that me, is that them, is that me, is that them?
Yeah, yeah, because that'll send you for a head trip for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you kind of answered these next two questions throughout things. Um, but I'll bring them up briefly, and then if you feel like you got it, just say, yeah, I think we covered it. What circumstances do you feel shaped your life?
Yeah, I think we definitely covered
Okay.
pretty much most of that, I'd say for sure.
I think you got this next one kind of knocked out too, but I'll still throw it out there. What positive lessons did you learn from your negative experiences?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, all of those things, like everything that we've talked about, for sure. It's all stuff that I have learned from negative experiences, you know, and like I had those times where, like, I know that you had talked about like having like mental illness and going through like your psychosis and stuff. I had a moment like that 2 years ago, and actually it was last year that it actually like came to a head. And it was really scary, and it was like my mind stopped, like literally, like I cognitively wasn't there. I was able to do the motions and everything, but I didn't have my passion, my drive, I mean, it was a really, really, really scary, dark time in my life, and it lasted a long time.
Hmm.
I feel like I am just barely on the other side of it. And so I just like, anybody that's going through anything like that, you know, it's like my biggest thing was like, just do the motions of what you know is good. Like, just like keep on working out, keep on learning to meditate, keep on reading, you know, your spiritual books and stuff. Like, just do the motions, like, because you will get out of it. Like, I promise you, you know. And my
Hmm.
hardest thing that was so disheartening to me was that I feel like I didn't have a freaking story to tell. You know, like I went and talked to um my old high school, as an alternative high school, to these kids, and I had the hardest time like coming up with the speech because I felt so freaking fake. I'm like, here I am trying to tell kids like how to be positive or how to like follow their passion, when like I am so like not there right now in my life. And that was the hardest part of all of it, was like feeling like I didn't have a story because I was in the rut of it, you know.
Mm.
And like, not, I try to be positive about things. I try to be a blessing to other people. I was not that, you know. So, and that's why I'm so like driven being on the other side of it, because I'm like, finally I feel good enough to like and I came out of that, which even that was shitty, you know, like finally I feel good enough to be able to talk about these things, and I do feel like I have that purpose and I have that connection again, but it was not there for, like, I'm saying, like a good year. I
Mm-hmm.
was not, it was not good. So, I mean, things like that happen, situations like that happen, but you gotta find a way to get on the other side of it
No,
somehow, some
completely.
way.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one of the things, like, with this, people see the product of, like, years of recovery from shit with my mental illness. It's like the first time I went psychotic, I just celebrated the 5-year anniversary of that on my mom's birthday this
Wow.
year in July 22nd was
Wow.
like around 5 years the first time I went psychotic. And then it's like after that, there was like a year pause, and then I went psychotic for the better part of a year. So that would bring us to 2012, like 2013, 2014, and like
Mm,
2015, I just didn't do anything really. Like 2016, I like started to get better, but like near the end of 2016 is like when shit changed, and it was a process because there was a lot of times when all I could do was sit around and play video games because I had no hope, or like, and that's as much of the healing process, which I was fortunate to have, just have space and just have people that care about me to kind of overcome it, because so many people get this ideology of you need to do this now. This is what's going to be good for you. When it's like literally work to just breathe or like get out of bed or think. And it's like I wanted to do stuff like what I'm doing now.
mm,
Right after shit happened in 2012, but I was like still getting high. I didn't have an actual message then because I hadn't dealt
mm,
with the underlying issues of it.
right.
And it's like I couldn't create anything because I was so self-critical of everything
Right.
that I tried to create, excuse me. And it's like, this is probably like my third or fourth attempt to like do a website and have a message and talk about these experiences. But without all those other failures and feeling like shit for
Yep.
so long, I wouldn't have anything to talk about. If I was just like,
Exactly.
boom, I'm better. It's like, fuck no, I clawed out of hell. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Dug myself out of the freaking trenches for sure.
yeah,
No, for sure. And every time I've asked in my life, every time I've asked, I'm like, why? You know, like, it's like how, you know, Jesus Christ on the cross, Father, why have you forsaken me? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to go through all this suffering? You know, and every time it's the same answer. It's like, you have to experience this. You have to experience this, but there will come a time where you will be on the other side of it, and you will be a blessing to others, and you will have a message, and you'll have something to talk about it, and you'll have experience. You know, like, that's why. It's to grow,
absolutely.
it's to learn, and it's to give back and show up for other people that need you. You know, that's why.
Yeah, my life's purpose was my pain. Like my pain was hidden behind
Yeah,
my life purpose
yeah.
was hidden behind my pain, and it's like it's one of the things that at the time it was like my biggest curse. Now it's my greatest blessing.
Mm,
I guess it's one of my greatest blessings, I should say, is going through it. The greatest blessing I have is actually getting through
right.
it.
Yep. Yep.
What songs or bands have lyrics that most resonate with you at this moment?
Hmm. So I am like a huge reggae fan. There's actually this album that I've been listening to by a local band in my area from Telluride, Colorado. The band's name is Niceness. They're awesome. The lead singer, her name is Coral, and she's like this beautiful, dreaded goddess. She's just amazing. And her lyrics, I do believe she writes all the lyrics, but so she has a couple songs that I've just like religiously have been listening to nonstop. One of her songs is talking about like one of her lyrics are maybe our hardships are for us so that we can grow and move forward,
Mm,
and I will rise to the occasion, shine in love. um so all of her lyrics are like that. She also has another song that is talking about, it's called walk away or walking away, and it's about her like leaving a relationship or whatever, and she says, you know, I forgive you, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stay with you. I got to be true to myself, and I'm older now, I'm stronger now, um, and she says, I choose life and I free myself. I love myself enough to walk away. And those are like my favorite lyrics. Like it's just like so profound, so yeah, definitely Niceness.
Yeah, that
The
sounds
band name,
awesome.
I don't know if I said that, but yeah, Niceness.
You'll have to send me the link to check out some of their music sometime. I'd appreciate that.
For sure.
I'm a big reggae fan.
Nice.
Um, this is kind of funny because you said you don't like these kind of questions before we started recording, but I'm still gonna ask. What philosophies, spirituality, or religions do you find most aligned with your understanding? And please explain them as they apply to you.
So like a lot of different things. I like different things from different religions for sure. And I don't know all the religions out there. So it's pretty small the amount that I do know. Obviously I was raised Christian. So the underlying beliefs I think are really helpful. I'm thankful to be raised in the church. It was the faith that my parents had was literally what kept them alive and literally what kept them going. So I appreciate that for what it is. There's small things that I was raised with that I'm very thankful for. We always sat down around the table to eat dinner. We always prayed before we ate. And one thing that my parents always did is every time they ever made a mistake or if they ever hurt me in some way, they would apologize and they would ask for forgiveness, which is huge. And I like people don't do that enough. And I strive to be like that with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of I love the story of Jesus Christ. I love his teachings. I think that it's gotten really misconstrued, but for what it is, I think it's awesome. Buddhism has really helped me in different times of my life. The detachment, that that's just a good way to live, like being peaceful and loving. Taoism, that one's a really cool one. And I've like, I'm one of those people that's like, I read like a book on something and I think I know everything about it, but, so what I've learned like with Taoism is learning how to like heal yourself. So like for me, I had this book called The Tao of Forgiveness, which is really awesome. So it has all these different meditation exercises where, so say like you connect with some type of hurt that you've experienced. So say for me, my issue, would be like being a child that felt unloved,
Mm-hmm.
or felt criticized or whatever. So you connect with that part of yourself, but then the meditation practice is where you also connect to, like, I connect to my mothering part of myself, to my loving part of myself. So the mother in me heals the child in me.
Mm.
And that has been so profound, especially because like I consider myself a really good mom. It's very important to me to be a good mom. I love my kids and I try to be the best I can. So I have that motherly love that like I give to my children, but learning how to give it to myself and to a part of myself that needs it, like I think that's awesome. So Taoism for sure. And I really like some of the things like with Judaism. I love the like ancient history of it all, the ancient text of it all, how it's been passed down so strongly and it hasn't been so misconstrued and changed a lot like Christianity. So I have a lot of respect for that. And then there's more of like the Wiccan paths and whatnot, which I appreciate how like respecting Mother Earth and the energies and whatnot. I respect all of that, but I only go so far with a lot of that stuff because it actually, a lot of it reminds me of Christianity, where like for you to like all these rituals that have more to do with things than it has to do with like the energy or the experience. So some of that stuff is like too like materialistic to me.
Mm.
So and also being raised Christian, like there's stuff that I have to be aware of. I was really terrified like of demons and stuff because I like Foursquare, it's like they speak in tongues and slain in the spirit and all this like crazy stuff. So they teach you, like demons and the devil and whatever. So I got to be careful not to like feed into any of my like childhood fears whenever it comes to that stuff. So like Ouija boards, like nah, like I wouldn't mess with that. Tarot cards is a totally different thing, I feel, because like, well, for me, like it's a way for me to connect, and it has helped me. So like that's a good indication of whether it's like in the light or in the dark, and it has helped me, and I don't feel any weird evil vibes or whatever from it. So
Hmm.
yeah, a little bit of everything for sure, but a lot not of everything.
No, I get that too. That's kind of where I'm at with stuff. It's like I find little pieces of stuff that I like and things, and a lot of stuff I just leave it where it is. And it's not that I don't think it can work for other people; it just doesn't work for me.
Mm,
So that's really it. Taoism is like probably my favorite because under my understanding of Taoism, pretty much every other religion falls into Taoism because the Tao is everything, and it's like
mm.
it's I like it because it's dualistic too. Like even the Tao Te Ching, it says the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. So it's like what I'm reading isn't even
Right?
the real Tao. It's just living my life and like experiencing things with some of these concepts in there. But it's like I can't ever explain it. It's like if you know,
Right?
you know. If you have
Yeah.
to ask, you'll never know.
I
It's
really like that concept because that's why I have such a hard time with questions like that, because like I can't explain it.
mhm.
How do you explain this?
Yeah. People that get it, and people that don't, and it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What do you perceive as your life's purpose? Very easy
Um,
question.
yeah, yeah, no pressure. Um, so I feel like my purpose is to enjoy my life
Hmm.
and to be a blessing to others and to take care of myself. And that's like my foundation, and then everything else stems from that. Um, everything else.
That
So
makes
yeah.
no, I definitely relate to that. If I don't put myself first, everything else falls by the wayside because I can't pour from an empty cup. Like I said
Yeah.
this in the interview yesterday too, because I like when people are like in sync with me in some ways, but they have like different ways to express it or like it reflects
Hmm.
differently. But that is like the life purpose is to be you, and anything else that comes as a product of you being you and taking your care of yourself. That's great. But it's
Hmm.
like
Exactly. Well, and it's so like we don't, in this society, it's like we're led to believe that, you have to be selfless or else you are selfish, and you have to work all the time to be successful, and you have to, it's like all these things that are not self-serving, you have to be that way. It's like, I just wish people, and I see this a lot with like young mothers with young children. I mean, we naturally give, 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 but you've got to learn to like take some time for yourself. And not only that, like I heard this quote the other day that I thought was perfect. It's like the thing about putting yourself second is that you've taught other people that they come first.
mm,
Like I have friends that they're like, oh, my kid, and I'm so stressed out, I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm depressed and anxious and all this stuff. It's like you have to make time for you. You have to teach your kid that you deserve this time. Like this is what mom does. Like I'm proud of myself because I've learned, like, my thing is like taking like Epsom salt baths like at least once a week, and I'll do like the whole like candle lit freaking relaxing like zen music, the whole thing, and that's my self-care. And then my daughter has like seen me do that, so she knows, like she is so like respectful of my time, or my 10-minute meditation in the morning. I tell Marley I'm doing 10 minutes, and she knows. And not only am I, and then I'm teaching her that she can take that time for herself, like in her own life or with her own kids in the future and stuff. And it's like,
mhm.
it's so much more powerful than you just like pouring from an empty cup all the time or running yourself ragged. It's like, take time to take care of yourself, to, just go within and relax. And I pushed myself past my like stopping point so many times in my life, especially whenever I started my business and a, I had my second child at the same time. It was really, really rough. And I just push, 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 push. And you can't show up for anybody if you can't show up for yourself. Like
Absolutely.
and you're going to be looking for it in everybody else. Like, why aren't you loving to me? Why aren't you taking care of me? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Because you want them to take the responsibility to take care of you when you have to take the responsibility to take care of you. And then like I said with kids, showing them that, and I teach Marley now whenever she gets all worked up and overwhelmed like 7-year-olds do. It's like, do you want to go take a relaxing bath? And she's like, yeah, so it's like, oh, awesome. I got to teach her how to take care of herself, and I got
Hmm.
to show her too at the same time. And that is so powerful. I mean, I just think about her learning those lessons at a young age and taking them with her to the rest of her life. I'm just like, I'm so blessed to be able to like be her mom, to be able to show her the things that I've learned, without her having to go through all that crap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be selfish to be selfless. In some ways, it's like that selfishly selfless. And
Mm-hmm.
then, in order to actually be in a healthy place with being selfish, so you're not too selfish, you have to be selfless. It's like
Yeah.
that weird duality kind of thing again. And it really is like, for me personally, there's been so many times where I would be like self sacrificing. But then, if I'm doing that continuously, it builds up this kind of resentment where I have these hidden expectations, which I don't ever voice to people. But then when they don't do what I expect them to do, that I didn't tell them that they needed to do if I did
Yep.
this, I get all fucking pissed off. And then it cuts me off from anything. And it's completely not spiritual. And it's just me trying to manipulate people, but like thinking
Yeah.
I'm doing something good.
It's really easy to do that. And I think it's important to be proactive about that. It's like, don't wait until you get to the point of no return, like to take a time out for yourself. It's like, make it a ritual, make it a habit so that like, and psychologically, like your brain, your body, your energy, like expects that. It's like you can handle this right now because you know that later today you can shut it off and you can have your time. So it's like training your brain that it's okay to endure these stresses momentarily because it knows that you're going to have your quiet time or whatever later. So I mean, it's important for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my biggest things in my journey is either pushing on when I should stop or like stopping when I should be pushing on. So it's again,
Right?
it's like
Yep.
finding that balance. And it's like,
For
that's one of the
sure.
things with what I'm doing now is I'm learning that sometimes I need to push myself a little bit more and sometimes I need to stop a little bit more. But I also have, without using substances, I have such a lower threshold for how much over or like close to the limit I can go, which is a good thing because I'm just like, this is when I need to stop now. And this is where like I need to center. Otherwise, I'm gonna like blow everything up and light everything on fire and then pee on the ashes of it.
Mhm. Well, I think that's how people get in addictions and stuff is like, I know for me, that's why I got so wound up in and everything in like substance use and abuse and stuff is because I'm like, okay, I'm so freaking exhausted, but instead of me just taking time out, I'm gonna like take a couple shots to get energy to keep on going past this. It's like you use those things to help you push past the point whenever it's like if you like don't do that, just like take the time out, and talking about since we're talking about like substance and whatnot, one thing that really helped me is like I used to be like, don't drink, don't smoke. Like I wake up, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that. Well, I flip the script and it's like, okay, instead of saying don't do this, don't do that, like tell myself in the morning, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to, do my writings or whatever. And the more time I focus on doing the things I'm supposed to do instead of worrying about not doing the things I'm not supposed to do, then the less that those things like fall to the wayside, and then they're not as important and I don't care so much about them. And I think that's a huge like way to get on the other side of that.
Hmm. Yeah, everybody has their own different path. I mean, for me, I had to say like not to do it like initially, but then I got so busy doing other stuff and being
Hmm.
proactive in recovery that like I didn't even think about it. And then there was a point like 30 days in or 60 days in where I'm like, I haven't even thought about getting high or like drinking. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, what the fuck? Like, how did I like totally forget about that for this long? It was weird. Um, this is probably the hardest question, I feel like. If you had to describe your personal philosophy or condense your life experience into a few words, what would it be? Like 2 or 3 words.
Oh.
No pressure.
Actually there's all right, 5 words. And it's from like this standpoint, not from like things in the past, but my like motto to sum it all up would be take care and keep up.
Hmm. I like it. I like it. Um, there's only like 2 more questions and then like one other thing. Who inspires you?
Hmm. I actually have a lot of like little bag full of tricks of different people and stuff. You're one of them, by the way. Like,
Oh,
listen to
thank you.
your podcast. Yeah, definitely. Your podcast, Positive Head, different podcasts, the psychic teachers. I don't know if you've ever heard those gals, but oh my gosh, they're amazing. They're just awesome. So that always keeps me. And then I do like different podcasts, like the Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins, because I like to try to do spiritual, like airy stuff, and then really like challenging, like business or performance, like grounded stuff too. I try to like balance the two. So that keeps me going every day for sure. My kids really inspire me because they're kids. they're they're innocent and they're really super cute. But like everything that I've learned and being able to teach them, that's really inspiring to me, and that's motivational to me as well. And then like my mom, like she's a big inspiration to me too, because she's gone through so much and she's still like has a big heart and is still a faithful woman. And um there's a lot of things that tried to take her out a lot of times, and she's still here, and I'm honored to be her daughter and to help take care of her for the rest of her life. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love it when people say inspiration and have it close to home. I won't go into my long diatribe of why I like that because I've said it on so many episodes now. Like, it's cool to hear the closeness of that.
Right.
What books would you recommend to others, or what books impacted you the most?
So I just got done reading the Empath Survival Guide, and that was really good because it showed me like so many different aspects of an empath that you wouldn't just know.
Mhm.
And it made sense to me. I'm like, that's why I am like that, you know? Like she talks about like introverts and extroverts and all these different types of empaths, how you could be an empath. So that's really cool because it broke it down. And then she also talks a lot about like narcissists and all the
Mm.
different types of narcissists, which that was eye-opening because I like can identify narcissists in my life now. Whenever you can see people for who they are, then you know how to manage them instead of putting all these expectations. Why aren't you like this? What have you? That's helpful. Otherwise, I have all kinds of books. I read books all the time. So I started reading, ooh, that's a good one. Going Pro, that's a really good, it's Stephen Pressfield. It's a really like thin book. It's easy to read. And it's pretty much just talking about like taking it to the next level, like taking things seriously. And the whole book is written with pretty much, I think the longest, they're like little paragraphs, I guess. I don't know, like, or stories, like almost like musings, I guess, which I really like that type of writing. That's kind of how I write too. So that one's a really good one. Um, and this book, I don't know where the heck it came from. Like, I have no idea where it came from, but I started reading this book. It's either called, I think it's called Remembering. And it's the first book I ever read that, so it's kind of like the whole Abraham Hicks thing where this dude's like channeling like this group, he calls it the group. So this group of like, I don't know if it's like his higher self or whatever, but like all about, it's like Abraham Hicks stuff really, but it's talking about like how we're souls that come down to earth to have this like physical experience, and we have soul contracts and like all the stuff, you know, that we talk about like with the whole like positive head group and stuff like that. But I just thought it was funny because I have no clue where this book came from, and it was like all this like really really like intense insightful stuff. So if anybody's looking into like getting into some really crazy rabbit hole books, that's a good one. I don't even know who the hell writes it. So yeah, it just appeared in my, I just appeared in my life.
That's awesome. Okay, I let people close it down in their own way. Do you have any words that you want to take us out with? Oh, also, thank you for being here and taking the time to chat and all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks Ross. Like thank you for having me on. And you know, I think just being authentic with yourself and your story, putting yourself out there, being gentle with yourself, being gentle with others, and just trying to like be motivated by love more than fear. I think that that's just a good simple foundation for everyone for their path. So I mean, yeah, let's just be kind to ourselves and others.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply